So there's a few things I want to do tonight, some really critical to be done before we leave for the Thanksgiving break. So one thing I want to just show you a beta chart that one of my EMBA students did. I was really impressed that he put that together. You might be interested in this approach, especially like Jonathan. Some of you have limited data. He did a really good job on that. I want to show you the relative value Excel because I enhanced it somewhat. I think making it simpler. It does require Bloomberg. The FSC was open today, but it may not be open tomorrow. I don't know. That's the reason I gave you the extensions. So you definitely want to get paper 5 done up to the relative value. And then I want to talk about paper 6, the team paper, and then talk about your plan for the end of the semester, what all you're going to do. So that's my goal. So some of these are real quick. So let me show you this beta chart. Very good what he did. So he said, I have a firm, Vistra, that only has a few years of data. What do I do? So this is all the data I had. I said, can you find a competitor? And he did, NRG, that has more data.
They tried.
You can see how strong that looks. They move so well together, they could use this other history. That's a really good chart. So you'd have to do your beta chart, the calculation twice and combine the two charts. But if you're missing some data, you can, now this works even if you have all the data. If you want to ask the question, is my firm just odd or out of place? That would answer that somewhat. So that's actually pretty cool to do. I did give you, and I'll show you in the new spreadsheet, I did give you, so if you look at this, you can't do it in here because of I'm on Bloomberg, but if you look right here, I gave you all the sectors, and then after the sectors, I gave you some other industries that you can do. So I have capital goods. So you can see some of the others, food and specialty retail. Some of these you don't need because we're not doing those industries. Household and personal products might work. Materials, there was materials sector, materials industry, so that's probably going to help you. But if you select one of these, like biopharma, it automatically updates this and will update all the numbers. So that's kind of advantage. So that's the one change I made. If you look at the sector tickers, it's got them all listed, so you can see what they are. Then you take that and you paste it values here, and then you have the output. Remember on the output, you want to make sure that formula is gone, that you don't have stuff here at the bottom. Otherwise, it makes it really hard to do any graphics, but you bring this in. So what I did is I added this analytical page so you can somewhat look at it. So let's say you want to look at the 10% range, the 10% and 90 percentile. So it's a team project. So what are you going to do? So you're going to have an executive summary. We'll talk about those a little bit more on Tuesday so you can see. But you're going to summarize your companies, your target prices, some key data, and final recommendation for each stock. All right, so you as a team are going to have to decide your recommendations are going to be strong buy, hold, sell, strong sell. Those are going to be your choices for each of your stocks. So you might have one that's a strong buy, one that's a sell, one that's a hold. You know, if you have 3 companies, you got to decide on that. Your exec summary could be up to 3 pages because you have multiple companies or, well, I mean, so no more than number of companies. So if you have 5 companies, you might be 5 pages. But you need some kind of summary of them overall. So maybe you lead in with your list of companies and your recommendation as your entry page, and then you talk each company, your exec summary. So you essentially have an exec summary for each one of the companies. All right, that's your lead in. Questions on that? So you really can't do that until you finish paper 5. So you get a few issues here. Everybody's got to get their paper 5 done so you can put this together.
This is no more than.
Yeah, so if you have 5 companies, your exec summary might be 5 or 6 pages.
So 1 page dedicated per company.
At the most, yeah. If you can find a way to do it shorter than that. So you might have 1 page, that's the overall table. Here's the firms we looked at. Here's our recommendations for each one, and then you have something. If you can get it to fewer, that would be better. Then you have your industry analysis, your final one. So when you submit your your paper 6, if you made changes to your industry analysis, highlight those changes so I can go through and regrade those, or you can submit it separately. We'll talk about that here in a second. And then here's the tough part. You want your papers 2 through 5, 3 through 5, the final product. So you're gonna have a massive paper. You have executive summary, that's 5 or 6 pages. You have the industry analysis, and then you're gonna be, so this is what these type of papers look like. I wish I could show you one. I had one from Goldman Sachs from one of our former students. Boy, I should have brought that. But they had an industry analysis, and then they had several pages on each company. So your executive summary, it's going to start off with, we are initiating coverage of the XYZ industry, focusing on companies A, B, and C. Then you have your summary table. Then you have your exec summary for each company. So you start there, all right? The exec summary for each company, I'll show you some examples of that. I think we looked at a few earlier, but you want it to look very sell side. So there you probably want to, each person, each one of doing a company, pick those key statistics you want to bring up to the exec summary. All right, so there's your executive summary. Then you're going to have your industry analysis. That comes right after that. So you're initiating coverage on this industry. Start with your industry analysis. Then you have your detailed company analysis. So there's going to be some formatting issues that you're going to definitely have when you try to bring all these papers together. So make sure you have those put together. That's probably going to take you some time. So you might have one person kind of assigned to get that formatting. If y'all find this impossible, let me know. And if you have to submit the exec summary in the industry and then the individual companies as separate papers because your team just can't get it together, then that's fine. You can submit like 4 or 5 papers. I want you to have a product you can put out there on LinkedIn that should be pretty overwhelming. I realize it could be 100 pages when you put all this together. All right, so that's what you're looking for. Your team has to get these papers done. So if we look at the calendar, grades are due December 16th. So I need everything December 15th at say 6 o'clock. That's kind of the latest I can go. But when I say everything, I mean everything. So that includes the regrading, all that kind of stuff. So maybe the last thing you submit is your team's group 6, paper 6. You have one team member that's still making edits and changes, then that person is going to be on the hook to make their changes so you can get into your final paper. All right. This is where the group becomes really irritating. You got to get everybody to get it together. All right. So let's talk through this. You can see why I don't like team projects, but let's talk through this. So everybody understand the beginning of paper 6? So you could have, we are initiating, and then maybe have a table underneath with the 3 companies. So you could certainly do that. Questions on that? Then you have an exec summary, 1 page per company at the most, where you can bring key data. Your team should probably sit down and decide what that key data is. Let's talk a little bit about the key data. You're definitely going to do the football chart. That's the reason we're doing the football chart. All right, on value on that. You're going to get a good football chart. You get a great football chart out of paper 5. You'll just bring that up to the exec summary. You're going to have some key bullets on strengths, weaknesses. You're probably going to write that for your company. You have any other key data or charts, tell the story. And then some either intro or summary of the investment thesis. It's usually 1 to 3 sentences. It summarizes everything. All right, so you got a football chart in there somewhere. This is how we value these firms, some key bullets on strengths and weaknesses. Key data or charts, you might pull in a couple of charts from paper 4. If you think there's a key, like you're really noticing their strength and revenue growth or asset turnover or whatever you think really tells the story. And then your investment thesis. I'm recommending a strong buy in this firm because I think they have incredible growth opportunities, X, Y, and Z. You can see improvement in their margins last few years. Whatever you're going to say, your final thesis. All right. So intro page, exec summary for each company. Your final recommendation for each company, which that goes somewhat with your final recommendation. I'll show you examples on Tuesday. Usually you have a target price. Your football chart will be there with the target price. Oftentimes the target price is just the median of all your ranges and your football charts, but some target price and the current price, I'll show you all of that when we get an example of sell side. All right. So you got to keep it to 1 page. And what most do, let me actually show you an example. I think we looked at these before. These are really terribly written ones, but the format is what we're after here. If your team wants to give itself a name, maybe take your last initials and make up something you can. But you can see you have the industry page that's going to come before this, where you're initiating coverage. But what most of these sell side, I don't know why they do it, but it's this 1/3, 2/3 kind of look. So you have your team members, you have your target price, the current price. You're probably going to put the football chart somewhere up here pretty close, maybe after you list your team members. And then you have the text. You may have a few other charts over here. But yeah, that's a pretty standard. Even if you look at the second example, it's 2/3, 1/3, but the other direction. 2/3 on the left, 1/3 on the right. Theirs goes on a few more pages, but you're not going to do that because you have your papers 3, 4, and 5 that are going to do all of that, right? So you're just summarizing. So you can see what they say: initiate without performance. So they're recommending a buy. They got their target price. The current price is over here. They have the analyst names listed there. You want to make it look as much sell side as you possibly can. All right. So I gave you these two examples just to give you kind of the formatting look. You can see how they're listing essentially the strengths and weaknesses as bullets. They put a bunch of data down at the bottom, which is fine. Here's their football chart here. So this second one might be a better one. All right. Is it starting to make sense what you're looking for? And then your final recommendation, put your industry analysis and then in your company papers. You probably are going to need an index, I would think, after your executive summary. I don't like the index before the exec summary. I think it just looks weird. So put an index and an industry analysis and then your company reports. If I can remember to bring the one from Goldman Sachs, I'll show it to you. One of our students, pretty amazing kid, he interviewed Goldman. They didn't hire him. So I emailed Goldman and said, I don't know why you didn't hire this guy. He's like one of the strongest students I've ever had. So they finally hired him. And then I think like 2 years later, I went to New York and visited him and he was talking about his staff. It's like, your staff, what do you mean? Yeah, I got like 7 people working for me. He's been out of school for like 2 years. He was writing, but he did one on healthcare industry, which is the same paper he did in his class. He said, yeah, that paper was pretty horrible now that I've had experience, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you would expect. But very much like this, initiated coverage on the healthcare, pretty detailed report on the industry, and then detailed reports on the companies. It was a pretty thick book. That's what you're trying to create. You get this on LinkedIn, I doubt 1% of undergraduate students have something like that on LinkedIn. I realize it's a group project, but when you talk about an interview, you can say, yeah, I did all the analysis of this particular company. Pages 6 through 832 are my papers. You know, you're going to have it. It's going to look professional. So do the best with your team to make it look that professional. All right. So questions on this last paper? I wish I could find some more sell side research reports. It's tough to find really good ones. I had a really good one from JP Morgan with one of our students' names on it, but then he quit right after. And so that report completely disappeared off of Bloomberg. And it's like, he told me, I'm going to stay on the sell side for 3 years. And then 3 months later, he was gone. He went to the buy side. So it's like, he didn't last as long as he thought he was. Right. So now what I want you to do, I don't know if you have your teams, but your teams is strategy paper 6, how you're going to handle that. And then individual, what I want you to do is papers, well, strategy is paper 6 and paper 2, right? You might want to make some changes there. I don't think that's how you spell individual. 3 through 5, well, I guess through 4. Look at the rubric. Decide what you want to resubmit. All right, do y'all have access to your rubrics? John, do you bring your computer? Bring a laptop?
Yeah.
You got one? All right, if you have your laptops. So I want you to plan this out. So we don't have much time. We have the rest of this week, next week. You really have about 3 weeks, not quite 3 weeks. All right. So look at your paper 3. Some of them are pretty simple. Some people, like on paper 3, left out final conclusion for the industry, or no, that's not the industry. Left out a SWOT on paper 3, didn't do a SWOT. I mean, one student said, well, my SWOT was kind of included within. It's like, no, but your SWOT needs to summarize. You don't want your boss to have to go through and say, oh, that's a weakness, that's a strength, that's a strength. And you know, you want to put it there for them, even if it's repetitive what you did. So what are you going to add? Paper 4, Some of y'all, it's really simple. You forgot to tell me what the growth in sales was. You got 0 on that. That's an easy one to fix. But look through the rubric, decide what you're going to resubmit and start strategizing that. The other thing I want to make sure you're doing is finish paper 5 through the video. All right, at least get that done this weekend. So you get paper 5 done through the video so that all you got left next week to do is the relative value stuff that I'm gonna have to still fix that chart, okay? So that's what I want to do tonight. I want y'all to plan and strategize. You don't have to stay the entire time, but I do want you to tell me what you're gonna do. Everybody understand the assignment? Those on Zoom, y'all understand? I can't get to the Zoom people. Wow, there's 22 people on Zoom. I don't know how you work with your team, so you may have to set up a conference call or something. I would love it if you send me your plan, if you get one together, especially your individual one, so I have a sense of what you're going to be working on. So look at your rubrics, decide where you're going to focus your attention. Remember, when you resubmit, make sure you highlight resubmissions. All right, I'm not rereading your entire paper. I'm tired. You're tired. I'm not rereading that entire paper. So highlight what you changed. So, all right, I'll let y'all go. I'll be here for questions and assistance.